You are now watching SpyFox Television.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it is I, the American SpyFox, or do I even own that name anymore? I'm not quite for sure. No big deal. I'll just change the name. People know who I am by now. I'll just be Charlie Elliott or Charles Elliott. Anyway, as you guys know by now, I had a phone conversation with Max Wallace, the author of Love and Death, The Murder of Kurt Cobain. This dude is super knowledgeable about that case. He was the original investigator. Okay, to be honest with you, the original investigator was Richard Lee. Richard Lee was a respected journalist in Seattle. Okay, he was no joke. He believed Courtney had something to do with Kurt's death beginning like 4 or 5 days after they found Kurt's body. And he started reporting on what happened at the funeral home. I found out from Max Wallace that is true. The funeral home paid an undisclosed amount of money to Kurt's mother, Wendy O'Connor, and I believe some went to Courtney as well. There were younger guys who worked at that funeral home at night. Supposedly, their job was to, protect the bodies, protect the dead from robbers or anybody who would come in and do nasty things. And I guess they from what I'm hearing, they may have cut his they picked up his corpse and danced with it while listening to Pearl Jam music. Just things that you do not do with somebody's corpse, And honestly, they should have been charged with desecration of a corpse. But apparently, Wendy and Courtney were more interested in money, so they just settled out of court with an undisclosed amount. And Courtney surprisingly did a pretty, I wouldn't say a stellar job, but a pretty good job of keeping that whole story under wraps. I've learned quite a bit from Max Wallace. Some of it I want to share with you right now. Now, I can't have a recorded video conference with him until after January 4th because he is traveling for the holidays. Can't really remember where he said he was off to, but I believe his home base is in Montreal in Canada, and he's around the States somewhere. There are a couple things I want to share with you guys that I believe you would find interesting. I don't want to ruin everything I've learned because it's going to be in videos. Back to the beginning. Richard Lee was a respected journalist. He started the Cobain thing, and then as we all know, over the years, it slowly drove him crazy until, I don't know if you guys have seen the news publications where he was in a Seattle court. He was saying that all of the photographs of Cobain's body should be released to the public. And what he really wanted was to get those photos so he could take them to an independent expert, someone like Dr. Cyril Wecht, correct? There was a theory from the coroner, Dr. Hartshorn, on what position Kurt was in and how Kurt could have fell and ended up where he was, and the shell could have ended up on the wrong side of the body. Hartshorn had this whole scenario that he basically explained to the SPD. So it's almost like, can you blame the SPD for believing that it was suicide? Because their coroner, their medical professional, is saying, oh yeah, he must have been sitting like this or squatting like this, and then he twisted and fell on his back. It was this ridiculous scenario that can't be proven because there's no trajectory. The shell didn't exit his skull and hit the wall or the ceiling or whatever. So for him to make up this whole scenario was kind of ridiculous. Richard ended up in the end, from what I'm hearing from people, I've never thought he was a nutty guy or he was off his rocker or anything like that, but apparently there were a lot of people that made fun of him or said he was crazy, or which is one thing I've always sort of feared myself. I guess it kind of drove him crazy. He lost his reputation. I believe he lost his job as a journalist in Seattle. This whole case really ruined Richard Lee. Of course, there are still a lot of people who listen to his old videos and believe what he has to say, and for good for good reason. I can tell you for damn good reason. Max would actually be the second investigative journalist. When Max came along, he went to Richard Lee, and Richard Lee helped, get him introduced to people like Duce and Alan Wrench. That brings me to my first topic that I would like to speak to patrons about today. Alan Wrench. Now, I don't know how much you guys know, but I'll tell you right now that I never knew a lot about Alan Wrench. Tom Grant spoke to me a long time ago and said, don't even bother researching Alan Wrench. He's a liar. He did it for publicity. Don't even bother with it. So I never did. That's why I've never had a video on Alan Wrench. I just thought he was a big liar. But I wanted to get a second opinion since I was able to talk to Max Wallace. I was like, well, shit, Max was there in Seattle. He met the guy. And I did read Max's book, but it was so many years ago that I've lost a lot of the details from his book. I did not retain a lot of knowledge from his book, even though I know it's full of everything you would need to know, right? And apparently he wrote about Alan Wrench in his book. So you guys may already know what I'm about to tell you, or you may not. It just depends on how deep you've went down this rabbit hole. What made me interested in Alan Wrench is not the videos where he's like, I killed Kurt Cobain, or they'll never catch me, or whatever he said. It really pisses you off that he would make such a mockery of the whole thing. Him being the last guy to be with El Duce, drops El Duce off, and then the next time El Duce is seen, his head is missing from his body. Or not missing from his body, but detached from his body, right? Someone could have easily pushed him in front of the train. There's that, and then there's, how did this guy get all of his money? If he's this loser that hung out with El Duce, who was a drunk and didn't have a job and was known to do anything for $1, which we talked about in the El Duce video, how in the world is he driving a Lexus? And how does he have this really nice recording studio where he makes music with a band? And, where did this money come from? And the rumor was right after El Duce was found deceased, that then all of a sudden Alan Wrench had money. Okay, well, this may be disappointing to you, but I'm here to tell you that is not true. So, number one, Alan Wrench's name is not Alan Wrench. That is a made-up name. Think about it. Alan Wrench, a tool. So it's a joke. He's playing off of his career, which is a plumber. Alan Wrench is a plumber. He owns, apparently, from what I'm being told from Max Wallace at the time, he owned a plumbing company where other plumbers worked for him, right? And you may say, well, a plumber, that's not a lucrative job, but it is. It's not a fun job, not a career choice most people would choose for themselves, but plumbers make a shit ton of money. Have you ever had to have a plumber come to your house? They're going to be there for like 20 minutes and charge you like $500. And this guy, not only was he a professionally licensed plumber, he also had other plumbers in his employ. So he got percentages of their wages, right? That's how Alan Wrench afforded a recording studio and a Lexus and whatever else he had. He wanted people to believe that he was just some no-name loser without a job that came into all this stuff right after El Duce died. He is such a piece of crap. He's such a shitbag that he used his own friend's death to gain attention for himself, to gain publicity. You can tell that he also wanted people to possibly think he killed El Duce. And you know what? El Duce was the kind of guy, being that shock rocker, doing anything for a buck, saying anything for a buck. I think if El Duce could come back alive, he would probably think it's funny that Alan Wrench did that and tricked people into believing everything that I just said. Personally, I could not use one of my friend's deaths to gain publicity for myself and make myself look like a cold-hearted killer. Max told me his real name. I'll ask him again when we have our recorded video conference. It escapes me, and it's probably in his book. Like I said, it's been years since I read it. Maybe you already knew this because you read the book more recently and you remembered. That was a detail I wanted to share with you. That's why I will never write about Alan Wrench. I will never give him attention. That's what he wants. He has sold a lot of CDs and the Kill Alan Wrench project and t-shirts that say Kill Alan Wrench. He has sold a lot of those and made a lot of money from this attention. However, this is where it gets interesting. And again, I'll have to go into further conversation with Max to understand better, because we talked for a really long time, but we skipped around from subject to subject, detail to detail, and then my phone was dying and I had to go. We kind of got cut off at the end about this whole Alan Wrench thing. But did he kill El Duce? Yes or no? Did he kill Kurt Cobain? No. No, he absolutely did not kill Kurt Cobain. Did he kill El Duce? That seemed to be, even to Max, seemed to be a question that could still need answered. I don't know. Maybe I should talk to Alan Wrench. Maybe I should contact him and just see what he has to say. Maybe he'll change his mind and say, no, it was all a scam, or, whatever. But it is pretty weird that El Duce's in Kurt and Courtney saying, oh, let the FBI catch up to Alan. Oops, And then the next thing you know, El Duce's been hit by a train after being seen with Alan Wrench, after being picked up with Alan Wrench. Now, Wrench claims that he just dropped him off at the liquor store and took off, and that was it. But we don't know. Maybe I should contact Alan and ask him if he'd be willing to take a lie detector test about El Duce's death. I know a guy, a polygraph examiner right here in Ohio, who will do a polygraph examination for $200. Okay, so that brings me to the next topic I want to talk about. I want to talk about Melissa Auf Der Maur, or AfterMauer. I'm not sure quite how you pronounce that. The bassist that took over for Kristen Pfaff in Courtney's band Hole. Learned a little about her. Now, I'm a little sketchy on the details. Again, it was a phone conversation. It wasn't recorded. I wasn't taking notes. So this is going to be something that Max and I are going to talk about in this video coming up in a week and a half or so. I'm going to try to do it right after the 4th. He said I'll be home on the 4th, so anytime after the 4th I'll be available, and I'm going to try to catch him on the 5th. Like, I want to get this done and out there for people to listen to. When you're writing a book, you have an agent, you have a publicist. They do not always allow you to write everything that you want to write, because their main goal is to sell books, and they don't want to be sued and have their profit taken from them, right? Of course, for Max, his goal was to get to the truth. I have no doubt about that, but as far as his agent and his publicist go, there are some things that he couldn't write, and that's why we're going to have a conversation about the behind the scenes, and he's going to be able to talk to you about things that he couldn't write necessarily in his book. Now, Melissa Auf Der Maur, this is what I learned about her. Her father was, I believe he's dead now. Pretty sure he's dead. Don't hold me to that. But is a famous journalist in Canada. He was apparently a very gregarious character, very charismatic. He was an alcoholic, but a functioning alcoholic. He had a very good reputation in the publication world, tons and tons of connections with the media, mainstream media. He was known to where he lived, and I believe it was Montreal. Again, Montreal. We will correct that whenever I have this conversation. We'll get all the details straight when you see the video with Wallace. But anyway, he was known to go to like some local bar in the city he lived and sort of like hold court. Like, people enjoyed coming to this bar and drinking and listening to him tell stories, tell jokes, gossip about celebrities and people he'd investigated. He was a very well-liked guy. Courtney Love actually met Melissa's father before she ever met Melissa. And Courtney was, needless to say, smitten with him, because he had a lot of connections in mainstream media, especially in Canada. He had connections in the States as well. And as we all know, Courtney loves the media. You ever watch that Everett True interview where he says, I was going to meet Courtney Love, and he says something like, she was ecstatic to meet me. She has a certain fondness for the press, or so I've been told. You know, he makes a joke about how much Courtney loves the media. And so when Courtney meets someone who has connections in the media and they're a good, well-known journalist, she kisses their asses. She puts on the charm. She wants them to be her best friend because she knows that they'll write good stuff about her if they like her personally. I believe that giving Melissa this position that was left after Kristen died was her way of ingratiating herself with Melissa's father. Then not only could she have her father writing good articles about him, he's got tons of friends in mainstream media. If you were paying attention in the 90s, or if you're going back and looking now, after Kurt Cobain died, and then, you know, that whole mess sort of died down, it's like everything from there on out was so great about Courtney. Oh, she's totally turned her life around, and she doesn't do drugs anymore, and she's a terrific person. And you guys remember her Hollywood days. That was a big part thanks to Melissa Auf Der Maur's father, who got her all that great media attention, convincing other journalists who looked up to him to write about Courtney fondly and to stay away from all the negative things she was doing. To this day, I'm pretty sure Courtney still enjoys all this positive media she gets because of that connection and the other people that she met through Melissa's father. So this is very interesting. See, Melissa isn't that great of a bassist. I mean, they could have found any number of other females who were better musicians. Melissa can sing well, but compared to Kristen Pfaff, Melissa sucked at bass. Kristen Pfaff was a way better musician than Melissa. Now it makes sense to me why they chose Melissa. One of you, it's not that I forget your name, I just can't remember which person I was talking to, just told me that there was apparently a podcast that Melissa Auf Der Maur was recently on, and she talked about being in Hole and how Courtney screwed her over financially. I need to watch that. I've got to watch that. I might even include some footage of that in the Max Wallace video. So thanks for making me aware. Kristen made $10,000 a month. This should tell you how much better of a musician Kristen was. Kristen's contract was $10,000 a month, plus travel, food, all that, plus per diem. So Kristen was banking $120,000 a year to play bass on a record and go on 2 tours. They did one in 93, and then they were going to be doing one in 94. They only paid Melissa like, I think it's $600 a week. So like what, 6 times 4, $2,400 a month. That's a huge difference. By the way, this just popped up in my head. Trent Reznor's 9 Inch Nails. You know Trent Reznor wrote all the music, right? He had his little keyboard and his drum machine and his synthesizer. He created all the music, wrote all the lyrics, did all the vocals. But when he would go on tour, he needed other guys to play the music, right? So he hired traveling musicians who only got paid $600 a week. So that must have been the going rate at the time for an average musician that nobody knew. One of the guys that Trent hired, and my God, I'm really bad today with names. The guy who started the band Filter, you know, Hey Man, Nice Shot, which I had that record in high school, the Filter Short Bus album. That was an awesome record. I liked every song on that record, but man, after that, they got really radio friendly and poppy, and it just went downhill, and I quit paying attention to them. So anyway, the guitarist that was touring with Trent Reznor goes to Trent and he says, man, like, you're making all this money and you got all these groupies and, you know, you're living the high life, and here I am playing this music, touring with you, and I'm only making $600 a week. And Trent Reznor told him, well, if you want to make the big bucks, write your own songs, start your own band. And he did. He started Filter. If you didn't know that story, that's kind of interesting. In a way, it kind of sucks. Like, the guy only started the band Filter for money. And then he ended up doing to other guys what Trent did to him, paying musicians small sums while he, took in all the cash flow. But whatever, it's the music industry. I guess that's how it goes. Whoever writes the good songs makes the big bucks. There are many, many things that we're going to talk about. It's the conversation's going to be so long that I'm going to have to split it up into 2 or 3 videos. This guy has a ton of knowledge, just background, just details like that will make you see these people in a different light. Like, oh, I see how they're all connected now and why they do this. I'll do this for you if you do that for me. There's a great story I want him to tell. Total coincidence, and I'm not going to tell it to you right now. I want Max to tell it to you, but I will tell you what it's about. While he was writing the second book, Love and Death, The Murder of Kurt Cobain, one of his friends was living in California, and just out of sheer coincidence, ended up running into Patty Schimmel. His friend runs into Patty Schimmel. Patty Schimmel is her neighbor, right? So he says, oh, well, you got to talk to her, like, ingratiate yourself with these people, whatever. So Patty would apparently every day, either Patty or Callie DeWitt, who was living with Patty at this time, and we'll find out what year this was he was talking about. His book came out in the late 90s, didn't it? Like a long ass time ago? Probably in the late 90s, 96, 97, something like that. Daily, either Callie or Patty would walk Courtney's dogs. Apparently she was out of country or something, and they were babysitting Courtney's dogs, and they would walk them. Long after Kurt was dead, Callie DeWitt is still Courtney's bitch, walking her fucking dogs. This girl that's friends with Max Wallace ends up being invited to like this little neighborhood cookout sort of party. I don't know if it was like an indoor dinner party or outside barbecue or what. At Patty Schimmel's house, where Callie DeWitt is living, watching Courtney Love's dogs while she's gone. She goes to the party, and guess who's there? Fucking Dylan Carlson. Dylan Carlson is at the party, and I'll leave the rest for Max. But for him, it was this huge, like he's writing a book about these people, and then one of his friends ends up being a neighbor. Like, you couldn't have had a better source, because then it's almost like you got a mole. You got somebody who can sort of get to know these people and figure out what kind of people they are, and it's crazy. His stories, you'll probably love them. From there on out, if you have not watched the Max Wallace interview, there are several videos on the channel, and you can see what happened when I talked to him. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of this video. I cut off the rest. I was just talking to patrons about behind the scenes things and stuff to do with the channel. I always try to keep patrons up to date on just what's going on in my mind and new videos that I'm working on and stuff like that. If you'd like to become a patron, click the link below. I would greatly appreciate it, as YouTube loves to remove my videos, age restrict my videos, demonetize my videos, limit the monetization. They make it really difficult to do this full time. I actually had to get a new job because they're just coming down on my channel so hard. Any patrons or channel members would be very, very welcome. Also, don't forget about that petition, which is also down below. We need more signatures for the Kurt Cobain petition. The next video popping up should be the Nirvana Unplugged review. I'm having a little bit of delays with licensing some music, so I'm able to play Nirvana's music in the Nirvana Unplugged review. If it doesn't work out, I'll have to re-edit it and take out the music, which I don't want to happen, which is why I'm waiting for the copyright holder to work with me on a license. You also might be happy to know that I'm moving back into my recording studio. It gets so cold there in the winter that it's, even with the wall heater, it's still too cold. That's why in a lot of those videos from last winter, I'm wearing a scarf and a coat and a hat. Yeah, it was actually cold. That was not to try to look cool. I was cold. Spring has come, and I'm moving back into the recording studio, back to my Nirvana memorabilia room. I think you guys will like that a lot more than this shitty green color. If you're wondering why I only use the green screen sometimes, it's because you have to have the appropriate lighting. There can be no shadows. So I have to have appropriate lighting to do that. And my new puppy chewed my ring light cords, destroying the lights that I used to use. So in future videos, I will be down in the recording studio. And if I do use a green screen, then I'll make sure to use it right. Thank you so much for watching the channel. I appreciate all of you. And I'll see you in the next one. Okay? Bye-bye.